Welcome to But Frankly Pierce News. I'm Arthur Fairview. Here's what we are facing. Really? This is the lead? Okay. And once again, the news sounds familiar. A Florida man.
Why is it always a Florida man?
I think it has something to do with the water.
I thought it was the incompetence and corruption.
Not that Florida man. Governor Ron DeSantis.
Hey, we were close.
The Florida governor's idea of immigration is, shall we say, a bit bizarre. At taxpayers' expense, he chartered 2 planes to send 48 Venezuelan migrants from Texas to Florida, and then on to Martha's Vineyard, an island off the coast of Massachusetts. This is part of his $12 million budget for, and I quote, implementing a program to facilitate the transport of unauthorized aliens from this state consistent with federal law.
But weren't these migrants in Texas?
How did Florida man even know what was happening in Texas?
Good questions. Apparently, Governor DeSantis has people on the ground in Texas. It is unknown if they are employees or contractors. Here is DeSantis putting his spin on it during a press conference last week.
So they've been in Texas identifying people that are trying to come to Florida and then offering them free transportation to sanctuary jurisdictions. And so they went from Texas to Florida to Martha's Vineyard with a flight. There's also going to be buses, and there will likely be more flights. But I'll tell you this, the legislature gave me $12 million. We're going to spend every penny of that to make sure that we're protecting the people of the state of Florida.
And clearly, this is not a one-off stunt.
These are just the beginning efforts. I mean, we've got an infrastructure in place now. There's going to be a lot more that's happening. But I'm glad that this has now put this issue on the front burner.
Moving the issue to the front burner? Are you sure that's a good idea, Gov? What do you think the taxpayers are going to think about this?
Good point. What was the cost?
A $12 million budget can move a lot of people.
Well, maybe not as many as you might think. The private company DeSantis hired, Veritas Systems, Inc., was paid $615,000, which translates roughly to $12,300 per migrant.
That seems excessive.
Clearly, someone is not thinking about cost.
No, not when you can book a flight from Miami to Martha's Vineyard for less than $400 per person. Essentially, Florida taxpayers funded these flights at around 30 times the normal price. Congratulations, Florida. Your governor just ripped you off so he can have some airtime on Fox News.
Ridiculous.
Thankfully, there are no other governors pulling this kind of stunt.
Actually, he's not alone. Governor Greg Abbott sent 2 busloads of migrants to the U.S. Naval Observatory in Washington, D.C., residence of Vice President Kamala Harris. You can see from the video that these people seem confused and are just waiting for something or someone. The video was taken by, wait for it, Fox News, who just happened to be there when this happened.
Shocker.
Surprise, surprise.
Okay, this is definitely a distraction tactic. The timing seems awfully suspicious.
Yep, on the cusp of midterm elections, and the Republicans know that the American people are pissed over Roe.
So they are putting immigration on the front burner, as DeSantis said. But there seems to be a new wrinkle to this story. Bexar County Sheriff Javier Salazar announced at a press conference that he is opening an investigation into DeSantis and the transportation of those 48 Venezuelan migrants to Martha's Vineyard.
On Wednesday, September 14th, here in Bexar County in the city of San Antonio, our understanding is that a Venezuelan migrant was paid what we would call a bird dog fee to recruit approximately 50 migrants from the area around a migrant resource center on San Pedro here in San Antonio. As we understand it, 48 migrants were lured, I will use the word lured, under false pretenses into staying at a hotel for a couple of days. They were taken by airplane. At a certain point, they were shuttled to an airplane where they were flown to Florida and then eventually flown to Martha's Vineyard, again, under false pretenses is the information that we have, that they were promised work, they were promised the solution to several of their problems. They were taken to Martha's Vineyard from what we can gather for little more then a photo op, video op, and then they were unceremoniously stranded in Martha's Vineyard.
The legal implications for this stunt are mounting. Tallahassee immigration attorney Elizabeth Ricci said, "An enticement like that, regardless of whether you sign a waiver, is fraud, and that is part of the definition of human trafficking. I think that everybody on those planes has a case to legalize as a direct result of being transported by the governor." Also, U.S. Attorney for Massachusetts, Rachel Rollins, said she would be speaking with the DOJ about DeSantis sending those migrants to Martha's Vineyard.
What, another Florida politician under investigation?
See, I told you it was in the water.
Funny thing about politicians making immigration an issue, it often comes from those who have personal ties to it. In the case of Governor DeSantis, a century ago, the door was almost closed on his maternal great-great-grandmother. She was en route to Ellis Island when Congress passed the Immigration Act of 1917 in February of that year. Among other restrictions on undesirable immigrants, it barred illiterate people from entering the United States. Although she couldn't read or write, according to immigration documents, she was spared as the law didn't go into effect until May of 1917, so she was allowed in.
Imagine that.
Good thing her great-great-grandson wasn't in charge.
Governor Abbott's family tree shows that his family roots go back to Scotland. Just goes to show, as #Resistance genealogy creator Jennifer Mendelsohn said, "Unless you're Native American or you descend from slaves who were brought here against their will, you are an immigrant in this country, or you're a descendant of an immigrant in this country." On to Puerto Rico, where, after the island's infrastructure was devastated 5 years ago by Hurricane Maria, they are reeling again from the aftermath of Hurricane Fiona. In the wake of Fiona, which made landfall as a Category 1 hurricane on Sunday, hundreds of thousands of Puerto Ricans were again without electricity. Island's governor, Pedro Pierluisi, has described the outages, massive flooding, and landslides there as catastrophic. In addition, the deluge of rain caused massive flooding. The storm stripped pavement from roads, tore off roofs, and sent torrents pouring into homes. It flooded 2 airports, and as you may have seen, destroyed this bridge, which was a temporary fix after Hurricane Maria, yet never replaced. There's much anger and frustration as many feel the slow recovery is partially due to the former administration's slow-moving assistance.
Or lack thereof.
As a result, the island never fully recovered from Maria, and Fiona just put a spotlight on how dire the circumstances are. The majority of the federal aid sent to Puerto Rico is yet to be spent, and the privatization of the grid has added to their woes. Next, more investigations into the failed former president. I know. I get it. There are so many right now, we almost need a scrolling ticker to keep track of them all.
That's not a bad idea.
Oh, no, please no.
Aw, you're no fun.
If I may continue. Thank you. The DOJ has gone on overdrive in issuing 40 subpoenas to aides of the failed former president. This is in addition to the separate inquiry regarding the mishandling and obstruction related to the presidential records and classified materials found at Mar-a-Lago. Most notable in this information gathering relates to one of our old buddies.
Looks like you're not sleeping well.
Yes, he's back in the news again. MyPillow CEO Mike Lindell was stopped at the drive-thru of a Hardee's restaurant by the FBI, who then issued a warrant for his phone. They took the phone and provided Lindell with documentation he chose to share with the public.
Today, the FBI, you're going to hear this, and you're probably already hearing it in the news. The FBI came after me and took my phone. They surrounded me at a Hardee's and took my phone that I run all my business, everything with. They could have just, what they've done is weaponize the FBI. It's disgusting. I don't have a computer. Everything I did up that phone, everything was on there, and they told me not to tell anybody. Here's an order, don't tell anybody. Okay, I won't. Well, I am. So, there you go.
Oh, he's not playing with a full deck.
I think he's playing solitaire with less than half a deck of Cards Against Humanity.
Oh, good one.
The Hardee's restaurant chain is having a bit of fun with this, capitalizing on national publicity while taking a dig at Lindell. The chain issued a tweet that reads, "Now that you know we exist, you should try our pillowy biscuits." And a sign outside one of the locations showed, "Now serving the My Pillow guy to the FBI." And what is viewed as a huge win for the failed former president, a Florida judge.
Loose cannon.
Judge Eileen Loose Cannon has granted the use of a special master.
Yes, master.
She has selected Republican Judge Raymond Dearie, who was suggested by the failed former president's legal team and agreed to by both parties. In addition, Cannon issued an order that bars the government from using classified materials seized at Mar-a-Lago in its investigation and requiring the government to disclose those materials to the special master appointed to the case. The DOJ has decided to appeal the case, sending it to the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals.
Isn't that full of Trump-appointed judges?
I got a bad feeling about this.
True, the 11th Circuit mostly comprises Republican judges, many of whom were appointed by the failed former president. But Neil Devins of William and Mary School of Law believes that while Cannon, a Trump appointee who has been siding with the former president thus far, the judges on the Court of Appeals may not necessarily follow suit. Devins stated, "We may actually see Trump judges on the 11th Circuit overturn this decision, just as we saw Trump judges during the elections reject claims of election fraud pretty much uniformly."
Here's hoping.
Yet things might not be going the way they planned. The Trump requested arbiter asked the former president and his lawyers to disclose details about the documents he claims to have declassified. They responded they don't want to comply.
They did what now?
Why not?
Because, as Team Trump told Dearie, they don't want to be forced to fully and specifically disclose a defense to the merits of any subsequent indictment.
In English, please.
Team Trump fears that a criminal indictment against the failed former president or others in his operation might be on the way, and answering the special master's question might undermine a future legal defense.
The process is off to a great start, isn't it?
You must comply.
But there is some good news finally regarding the failed former president.
Following a comprehensive 3-year investigation by my office, including witnesses, interviews with more than 65 witnesses, and review of millions of documents that were submitted by Mr. Trump and others, I am announcing that today we are filing a lawsuit against Donald Trump for violating the law as part of his efforts to generate profits for himself, his family, and his company. The complaint demonstrates that Donald Trump falsely inflated his net worth by billions of dollars to unjustly enrich himself and to cheat the system, thereby cheating all of us. He did this with the help of the other defendants, his children, Donald Trump Jr., Ivanka Trump, and Eric Trump, and former Trump Organization CFO Alan Weisselberg and Trump Organization Controller Jeffrey McConney. Mr. Trump and the Trump Organization repeatedly and persistently manipulated the value of assets to induce banks to lend money to the Trump Organization on more favorable terms than would otherwise have been available to the company, to pay lower taxes, to satisfy continuing loan agreements, and to induce insurance companies to provide insurance coverage for higher limits and at lower premiums. This conduct was all in violation of Executive Law, Section 6312, which gives the Attorney General broad and special powers to go after persistent and repeated fraud and illegality. As part of demonstrating illegality under that section of Law 6312, we show that they violated several state criminal laws, including falsifying business records, issuing false financial statements, insurance fraud, and engaging in a conspiracy to commit each of these state law violations. We believe the conduct alleged in this action also violates federal criminal law, including issuing false statements to financial institutions and bank fraud. And we are referring those criminal violations that we've uncovered to the United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York and the Internal Revenue Service.
You heard it here, folks. He is finally being charged with a crime. In the suit, which runs more than 200 pages, James's office details what it says are the former president's efforts to inflate his personal net worth, to attract favorable loan agreements, and lists more than 200 alleged instances of fraud over 10 years.
This investigation revealed that Donald Trump engaged in years of illegal conduct to inflate his net worth, to deceive banks and the people of the great state of New York.
I don't think he needs to inflate anything these days.
Nope, he's pushing maximum density as it is.
Attorney General of New York, Letitia James, concluded her remarks with a direct stab at the failed former president.
Claiming you have money that you do not have does not amount to the art of the deal. It's the art of the steal. And there cannot be different rules for different people in this country or in this state. And former presidents are no different. And so today we are making good on that promise, on our commitment, because no one is above the law.
And now, more good news. A new program under President Biden's infrastructure bill is set to plug up more than 10,000 wells of oil and natural gas that have since been abandoned. Once sources of energy, these derelict wells now act merely as exhaust pipes that emit methane from the basins into which they were drilled, increasing America's emissions with no return or value of any kind.
Just what we need, more emissions.
Plug them up.
The Department of the Interior has identified just over 10,000 high-priority wells on public lands across 24 states that has been leased for oil or gas drilling.
I'll get my backhoe.
But
Always a but.
these are just a fraction of over the 100,000 total derelict wells that need to be dealt with, not only to reduce unnecessary emissions, but serious safety hazards, as methane is not safe to breathe and is also flammable.
Over 100,000?
Better get my buddy's backhoe too.
Oklahoma and Kentucky have each identified 1,000 or more of their own such wells, while Texas and Louisiana have each identified around 800. Kansas has found more than 2,000 in its state alone.
That's a start.
As a side note, the failed former president is reportedly furious with Florida Governor Ron DeSantis over this immigration tactic. Not because it's inhuman or awful, but because he feels DeSantis stole his idea. According to Rolling Stone, the failed former president is telling friends and allies that he's outraged that DeSantis seems to think he's allowed to steal the ex-president's mantle as both media star and as undocumented immigration basher-in-chief. Lastly, something completely different. A transfer of power, the end of an era, with no chaos, no infighting, no selfish bitterness.
That ain't your daddy's January 6th.
In the United Kingdom, a country, a commonwealth, a world said a respectful farewell to a bygone era, with gratitude, pomp, and precision. Now the real work begins, to usher in a new age, with new age respect, inclusion, and yes, maybe a bit of pomp thrown in for good measure.
Think about it.
Oh, and last night, New York Yankees outfielder Aaron Judge tied Babe Ruth with 60 home runs.
And here's the 3-1. Drilled deep to left field. There it goes! Number 60! Slide over, babe. You've got some company. Aaron James Judge has tied George Herman Babe Ruth with 60 home runs.
It has been 623 days since the January 6th attack on the Capitol and our democracy, and failed former President Trump has still not been indicted or charged with anything. This has been by Frankly Pierce News. Thanks for watching. I'm Arthur Fairview. Won't you let me in, immigration man? Can I cross the line and pray? I can stay another day. Let me in, irritation man. I won't toe your line today. I can't see it anyway.